Much.
Let's turn our attention to mining, and we have item number 23, SB 637 by Senator Allen regarding suction dredge mining. Good afternoon, Senator Allen.
Good afternoon, Senator.
This is Dr. Monahan, who says funds. She's our scientist.
This is a permitting process for suction mining.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. And I want to particularly thank the committee for its very thorough review of this issue. I'm happy to work with the committee to incorporate the suggested amendments that are on page 6 of the analysis. SB 637 seeks to address a recent court ruling which found that California's regulatory program for suction dredge mining violated the Federal Supremacy Clause and the 1872 Mining Act because the Department of Fish and Wildlife does not have the authority to fully mitigate all the environmental impacts as directed by the legislature, and thus could not issue permits and lift the moratorium on suction dredge mining that we've had in place since 2009. So what this bill does is it empowers the State Water Resources Control Board, the Water Board, to use its regulatory powers under the Federal Clean Water Act to address the water quality issues associated with suction dredge mining. This addresses both the gap in regulator authority and clearly ensures that California's regulatory program is in line with federal protections. So, this is not a new issue to the legislature. We know and have discussed some of the environmental impacts of suction dredge mining. According to a 2003 study by the Water Board, the power equipment used by suction dredgers to vacuum up the stream beds can cause a plume of mercury-laden sediment to travel downstream, which of course can be harmful to both water quality, public health, endangered species, and cultural sites. In a letter to the Department of Fish and Wildlife from 2013, the board said that recreational suction dredging as a whole has disproportionately greater effect on mercury resuspension, which is like agitation and then redistribution of mercury, when compared to other natural events or human activities. And in fact, in 2011, the USGS, the Geological Survey, reported that miners mobilize and change toxic metals such as mercury that are currently buried under rocks and mud in our rivers through their activities. This action makes mercury more available for transformation into toxic methyl mercury, etc. So when the Department of Fish and Wildlife issued its final environmental impact report on suction dredge mining regulations in 2012, the department recognized that they did not have the authority to regulate impacts on public health, water quality, or cultural sites, and thus could not issue permits that guaranteed those protections, despite the legislature's requirement that it do so. They made the point at the time that other agencies, such as the State Water Resources Control Board, have jurisdiction over these impacts. So in January of this year, the San Bernardino Superior Court ruled that federal mining law preempted the department's regulations of suction dredge mining on federal land, since the department could not legally issue permits. The court commented that the state's laws relating to suction dredge mining needed clarification. By requiring the State Water Resources Control Board to regulate the discharge of pollutants into waterways resulting from suction dredge mining, as it regulates every other discharger under the Federal Clean Water Act, SB 637 addresses this ruling directly. It closes the gap in California's statutory framework regarding suction dredge mining by giving both the appropriate agency authority to deal with the water quality impacts and by ensuring suction dredge mining activity conforms to both state and federal protections. This is, of course, even more important now as our state is in the grip of our historic drought. We obviously need to protect water quality, and we've been talking quite a bit about water quality with previous bills here today. We had a hearing in the Natural Resources Committee. It passed out of committee, but we had a dialogue with some of the opponents, and I asked my staff to sit down with them, and they had a productive meeting. We're working on addressing two of their key concerns. One of them is that they asked us to give the Water Board a time frame for determining the waste discharge requirements, and also to allow the board to decide that no permit is necessary if that's what the board deems appropriate. There was a debate about the environmental impacts of suction dredge mining, and ultimately that this is not a ban on suction dredge mining at all. This is empowering the board to set standards, set environmental standards as it is associated with suction dredge mining. So these were both very reasonable requests, and we're working on them now. So I have Izzy Martin with the Sierra Fund and Craig Tucker with the Karuk Tribe to speak in support. Also, we have Carrie Monahan, who's the science director for the Sierra Fund, to assist in answering technical questions that might be relating to mercury contamination as it's relating to the mining. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Allen, and thank you, Senator Wachowski, and members of the committee for this opportunity to speak. My name is Izzy Martin. I'm the CEO of the Sierra Fund. The Sierra Fund's been working on the issue of suction dredge mining for about 10 years. We're participants in the Department of Fish and Wildlife's Public Advisory Committee around the suction dredge mining rules that were promulgated earlier this century. We have talked many times to suction dredge miners. Our concerns about suction dredge mining continue to be that there's a water quality component of the issue. Rather than speaking about that technically, I've brought with me Dr. Carrie Monahan, PhD hydrologist, that can talk in detail about, or at least in summary detail, about the specific science of the water quality issues at stake here.
Thank you.
Doctor?
Can everyone hear me? My name is Carrie Monahan. I'm the science director at the Sierra Fund. I'm also adjunct professor at CSU Chico State. Over the past 5 years, I've been studying mercury fate and transport from Malakoff-Diggins State Historic Park on Humbug Creek, which was once the largest and richest hydraulic mine in the world, and now is a beloved state park. It's estimated that almost 10,000 kilograms of mercury, liquid elemental mercury, was used at this site alone to be used in aiding in gold recovery processes. I'm going to reference two peer-reviewed pieces of scientific literature, both by USGS scientists. The first is The Effects of Sediment and Mercury Mobilization in the South Yuba River and Humbug Creek by Jacob Fleck et al. In 2010. The second is titled Mercury Bioaccumulation in Fish in a Region Affected by Historic Gold Mining, the South Yuba River, Deer Creek, and Bear River Watersheds by Jason May et al. In 1999. The first USGS study tested the effects of suction dredge on mercury at a hot spot on a hydraulic mine-impacted river, the South Yuba River. The study estimated that 100 hours of dredging with a single suction dredge could exceed a year's worth of total mercury loads. There were over 3,000 permits issued annually statewide prior to the moratorium in 2008. Obviously, not all suction dredgers are lucky enough to have access to a hot spot contaminated with gold and mercury. But that is their desired target, to find a hot spot where there is gold buried at the bottom of the riverbed. And with it, there is almost always buried legacy mercury that was once used in hydraulic and hard rock mining during the California gold rush. And it is exposed, re-exposed to the environment as a result of the modern day suction dredge miners' hard work. So the amount of mercury released by a suction dredge miner depends on where they are mining, how contaminated the area is from mining, how many hours they dredge for, and the size of their dredge nozzle. Once the silts and clays that are contaminated with mercury are liberated by the dredge, they can stay in suspension for a very long time, and they can travel great distances. And once mobilized, can redeposit in downstream reaches or reservoirs where the particulate-bound mercury can be methylated and incorporated into the aquatic food chain. The impact that re-released mercury has on the environment depends on when it is released, how much is released, what form it is released in, and where it lands. Most importantly, what we have learned from these peer-reviewed published studies is that seemingly low levels of mercury in sediment can become dangerously high levels in fish through a process called biomagnification. Over 90% of the anglers surveyed in a study conducted by the Sierra Fund from 2009 to 2011 reported that they ate fish that they or someone they knew caught. Bass fish in Combi and Camp Far West reservoirs on the Bear River have a do not eat fish advisory for women and children. Bass have been collected from these and other water bodies with over 1 part per million mercury, which exceeds the FDA action level, and many other species of fish are above the 0.3 part per million EPA screening level. Since the moratorium on suction dredge mining, the limited but published data we have suggests that methylmercury levels in macroinvertebrates, bugs that fish eat, has decreased, and this could be a very good sign. Look, as we learn more about the fate and transport of mercury, how it moves, when it moves, how it gets into our food chain, we have to be smarter about the practices we use. And my Aunt Bibby always said, you know better, you do better. And that is exactly what I'm here to implore you to do. Thank you for your time and consideration of this extremely important decision for our watersheds, our people, and our health.
Don't go away. We'll need, I'm going to have a question.
And we handed out her comments with their citations to the Sergeant at Arms.
Okay. Next witness.
Hi, my name's, well, first of all, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me here, Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you, Senator, for bringing this important issue to the table. My name is Craig Tucker. I'm the Natural Resources Policy Advocate for the Karuk Tribe. I would like to agree with Dr. Moynihan's Aunt Bibby that the more we know, the better and more informed decisions we can make. I represent the Karuk Tribe. The Karuk Tribe, with about 4,000 members, is probably the third largest tribe in California. And most anthropologists and linguists and Karuk themselves will tell you that they're among the first Californians. Their interaction with miners dates back to the original gold rush, to 1849, 1850. And that first interaction with miners was devastating for the Karuk people, just as it was for Indian people all over the state of California. And what we're experiencing today is, in some ways, a continuation of that first conflict. Suction dredge mining is having a big impact on Karuk tribal fisheries, Karuk tribal water quality, and cultural sites. And all that has been identified in an environmental impact report put together by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife Service or California Department of Fish and Wildlife as they promulgated new rules and regulations. However, what's been pointed out through a bunch of court cases, and the Karuk tribe has been tied up in litigation with both the state, U.S. Forest Service, and mining groups for about 10 years now, is that the way the laws have been written, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife lack the authorities to properly regulate this activity, which we now know can be dangerous for a variety of reasons. So we would advocate that it be clarified by SB 637 that the Federal Clean Water Act applies to small-scale motorized gold mining. Anyone else doing these kinds of activities, anyone else mining commercially to make a living, it's common and normal that you would have to get a permit to do these things, and it's common and normal that the State Water Board would be the agency that would offer those permits. I would just close by saying that the Karuk tribe, historically and still today, subsistence fishing is a major part of both cultural practices and how people put food on their families' tables. So whether it's mercury contamination, adding sediment to the river that affects spawning and rearing of juvenile fish, I just can't overstate how important an issue this is for the Karuk tribe. And I'll stop there. Thanks.
Others in support.
Andrew Grinberg, Clean Water Action, in support.
Eddie Moreno on behalf of Sierra Club California in support.
Okay, I have a question. Before we get to the jurisdiction issue, I need to understand this suction dredging a little bit better, because you talked about some variables of where they were, how many hours they were, the size of the nozzle, and I assume that all suction apparatus are not the same, right? So you're concerned in the two reports that you referenced, you're concerned about the disturbance. It's not what, I assume that you're sucking out what you want or what you don't want, and the question is, where does that go? But is it the disturbance that you're concerned with, is the stuff around it that's not exactly sucked, or is it the sucked material?
It's both. It was really important to understand that suction dredge miners are very good at finding gold and mercury at the bottom of the rivers, and they'll remove a large amount of material to try and get to those pieces of pay dirt, areas where there's a high concentration in the clays and silts where the gold and mercury, because it's heavy, has settled out. Now, that's what they're looking for. They're out there to find that gold. So they're sucking that up, right, after moving some big rocks aside by hand. They're sucking that up to what equates as kind of an underwater vacuum cleaner, all right? So it's helping them suck that up. It goes into the tube, and what happens is that liquid elemental mercury, which sometimes can be seen with the naked eye, just like if you were to break a thermometer, you would see liquid elemental mercury, and it's quite something to see that at the bottom of the river, all right? Once it's sucked up, it becomes atomized or floured. It's broken up into a billion little pieces instead of one piece. That's what mercury does, right? And it goes right out the back end into the river, right? Now that oxygenated mercury, it is actually what we call reactive. It's in a reactive divalent form, which is more likely to be methylated. So it's more bioavailable for bacteria to use that mercury in their metabolic processes, thereby methylating it, making it part of the food chain. And with every step in the food chain, it can biomagnify 100,000, 10,000, so that you get very, very high levels in large predatory fish that live a long time and eat lots of smaller fish.
So one of the variables you were looking at was the timing of I assume there's this fall run of fish when salmon come back in and they want to lay their eggs. There's the spring runoff when we have lots of water coming through the tributaries and all that. Talk to me about
It's actually...
some people may say there's no good time, but is there a better time, at least from a biological sense, for the disturbance?
Probably. It's a good question, but it's actually really simple in my mind. Winter storms move a lot of mercury. Rivers, when they're pumping, they move more than just water, right? They move dirt. They look brown, right? That's them moving particulate-bound mercury downstream, right? That's a large winter storm happening when it's cold and a lot of biological activity isn't happening very quickly. So that's a winter storm. That in comparison to a suction dredge miner who's probably out there in better conditions in the summertime and targeting hot spots and then dispersing that methylmercury downstream of them when biological activities of all kinds are thriving. You follow?
Right.
So the mercury methylation is very likely to take place when it's redistributed during the summer.
Okay. Let's hear from the opposition. We have the leaders or everybody. Who wants to speak first in opposition? Yeah. I have a binder. I know that.
I want to have Keith.
Make sure we don't.
Okay, who's going to go first?
Hello, Mr. Chairman. My name is Shannon Poe, members of the Senate. I'm the president of American Mining Rights Association. I'm also a professional gold miner, have been for about the last 10 years. And we want to thank you for the opportunity to sit down and talk to you folks today. When we had the committee hearing 2 weeks ago, the good senator next to me got to present this information about mercury and methylization and everything for about 15 minutes. When we got up to present our side, we were actually shut down and weren't even allowed to present any information about mercury. So we appreciate this offer. That bill did pass through committee, by the way. But I want to address something that the doctor said this morning. We're going to talk about the percentages of mercury and suction dredge removal and things like that. But you got to understand is that she was talking about when the river flows in the wintertime, and I believe you brought that up, high water level, everything moves. The gold moves, the mercury moves, and there's far more turbidity created by Mother Nature than a suction dredge could ever create. Even if you put all the dredgers in California in one river, it still wouldn't equal one flood stage. So I want to make sure everybody understands that. After the last committee meeting, we set up a meeting with Senator Allen at his request, and he was stated on record and on film that he'd like to meet with me personally after we provided testimony. So I drove 3.5 hours from Yosemite to be up here to meet with the senator, and only to find out when we got here that the senator wouldn't meet with us. So we didn't get a chance to actually speak with Senator Allen about this. But simply put, Senate Bill 637 is in fact a scheme, and it's a scheme to further ban suction dredging in California. It's promoted by special interests with flawed and in some cases omitted data on mercury. And I want to focus on that for a second. Is the doctor talked about the mercury levels rising. In fact, if you look at the data that was provided by the study she quoted, there's 4 years of data in there that has been omitted that specifically and conclusively shows that suction dredging and over that period of time that she was talking about, that the mercury levels have actually changed. That because since the dredge ban in 2008, they fluctuated, and the mercury levels have actually risen since suction dredging has been banned since 2008. So I think it's very important to point that out. The EPA also labeled suction dredging as the most effective method of removing mercury from our waterways. And they label it as 98% effective. And I want to give you an analogy because I don't think that everybody understands what a suction dredge is. It's not some giant thing that you see on Gold Rush on TV. It's a very small thing. It runs off of typically a motor the size that you'd see on a lawnmower. And it works just like a vacuum cleaner, is that everybody would go and vacuum their carpet. Why? To remove the dirt, the sediment, the pollutants, things like that. It cleans it. And that's precisely what a suction dredge does. There's no giant turbines or anything in there that's going to grind up fish and spit blood out the back. That's just not the case. Fish and Wildlife, in fact, uses the same hose when they stock ponds, lakes, rivers, anything like that, to actually transport the fish from their tanks to the water. That's the same thing. It's just an open tube. It vacuums material from the bottom, and it kicks it out over the top of a sluice box, and it puts it right back into the ground. It's called, into the creek. It's called incidental fallback. There's no additives. There's no pollutants. There's nothing being added to it. But when you take into the account that a suction dredge, according to the EPA in these studies, removes 98% of the mercury, that's a good thing. Yes, there may be 2% that may get potentially methylated, but 2% as opposed to leaving it all in there, when the high water stage or a flood or a heavy rain is going to move all that mercury and methylate most of it.
Is that because the mercury is stuck on the gold? Or not stuck on the gold. It's probably not a...
There is, and that's called amalgamation, is mercury and gold are attractants. They're like magnets. But a lot of this mercury, and the old timers back in the 1850s, yeah, they used liquid mercury. It was wrong. They shouldn't have done it, but they didn't know what the hazards were. The simple fact is that a suction dredge goes out and it removes that mercury. It removes 98% of it. The dredge on the Lake Combi project by Sierra Fund right now is 84% effective, and it's costing us millions of dollars in taxpayer money in grants for them to remove this. Suction dredges go out. We already have a permitting process. It generates revenue for the state, and it doesn't cost anything. What's really lacking here is an effective mercury collection facility or a program that actually does that. It's something that we had hoped to talk to Senator Allen about, although that didn't happen. I think that Ms. Martin, she had used an analogy, or she used a story that she saw a miner or somebody was driving around with a big mayonnaise jar of mercury around in his truck. And that's just simply not the case, guys. We're professional miners. We've been underwater for years and years and years. We see this stuff. The dredges recover almost all of the mercury. So you have to ask yourself, is it a good thing or a bad thing? If you're removing 90% of a toxic pollutant from the waterways, is that a good thing? Well, of course it is. That's just common sense will tell you that.
Where do you put the mercury? I mean, I know where you put the gold. I follow that.
Yeah.
Okay, on that one.
We buried the gold.
The mercury, I mean, I assume that there's some process that separates them, but what do you do with this 98% of the what characterizes disturbed mercury? Where do you guys put it?
That's a good question.
There's no place.
Is what happens is after you do what's called a cleanup at the end of the day with your dredge, you're left with basically gold and mercury and heavy materials. Lead, we remove almost 100% of lead fishing weights. As a matter of fact, at the last committee hearing, I showed a guy that dredged for 6 hours. He had 1,250 pounds of lead weights in one day.
That is actually
and it's actually in the book. But
2,250 pounds?
in one day with a 6-inch
Half a
dredge.
ton?
That's over half a ton.
That's a big truck.
That's a lot. But the problem is, and that identifies a specific issue here, is that there's no collection facility, there's no turn-in, there's no incentive for the miners to actually get rid of this stuff. So most of the people, like myself, because it is a valuable element. I mean, it's used in all kinds of
Thermometers.
yeah, thermometers, lights, all kinds of stuff.
Stop making hats with it. It's had a bad
Mad Hatter. But a lot of us just keep that, and at some point during the whatever life that you dredge is that you turn it into the EPA. And that's basically what most of us do. It's rather absurd to think that somebody drives around with a mayonnaise jar of mercury in their truck. That does not happen. So, but you could set up a collection facility in the rural areas, in the mother lode counties, with what's called a retort. And what a retort is it's a small device that you take that amalgamated gold and mercury, and it goes into a little cup. That gets heated, and the gold and the mercury that's collected together, that's amalgamated, you heat that up, and it actually atomizes it, or it turns it into a vapor, and then it gets cooled, and the mercury comes back out in its raw form, and the gold is left in the bottom of the cup. It's very environmental friendly, it's very safe. But that's the problem that we're all identifying here is there's no incentive for the miners to go turn that in. If there was a collection facility or, pay them $10 or $15 an ounce for the stuff, you'd get all of these people to turn it in. And then the state can do whatever they want. They can sell it to the industry,
They can use
whoever.
it for the compact fluorescent lights that the state is giving away by the millions.
Just one. Let's.
So anyway, we all want, and miners are very, very, I guess, environmentally friendly. We clean up hundreds of tons of trash and garbage off of our claims. We keep our public lands clean, and we're very proud of that fact. We all want sustainable waterways, fisheries, and recreation areas just like everybody else, but this bill absolutely hampers that. But I want to focus on the economic impact of this bill and the scheme of this bill. And that is that this bill, as well as the other bans on suction dredging, have devastated the lower and middle class. And you think about these rural communities and the literally hundreds of millions of dollars in the last 6 years that have not been spent in these communities because when suction dredgers go up there, they'll dredge for a week, or some people take a month off. I dredge year-round if I could, and we spend money in grocery stores and gas stations and hardware stores and RV parks and everything like that. There's businesses all through the mother lode that have had to close because of these schemes. These people are really hurting, and it's predominantly, if you look around in this room here and look at the demographics of the people here, they're not just young kids that are out doing this stuff. These are people that are relying on that income that they may be on Social Security, so they truly are lower and middle class folks. Another thing that we noticed is the language in this bill has just been changed from not deleterious, which is what the Department of Fish and Game EIR stated suction dredging does not do. We are not deleterious to anadromous fish, which we also need to point out, anadromous fish meaning salmon and steelhead. Over 80% of the gold claims in California have no salmon because of the dams. It's important that everybody knows that. So they've changed this language to won't have significant impacts on fish and wildlife. So is that going to be another 6-year study? How many millions or tens of millions of dollars are we going to have to spend of taxpayer money to meet the criteria of that language? How many more jobs are going to be lost? How many more rural communities are going to be impacted by this? Who represents the lower and middle class? I thought it was you guys. So millions of dollars in grant money, which is taxpayer money, has been spent and given to people and companies like Ms. Martin's Sierra Fund to allow this dredge project on Lake Combetty. Their dredge removes 84% of the mercury. Our dredges, proven, have removed 98%. So now I just read in this morning's newspaper that they're moving to go and dredge the Bear River. That's obviously going to cost the taxpayers even more money. The simple fact is that suction dredgers with the permitting process already in place raise revenue for the state. We don't cost the state anything. It actually raises revenue. If we were to create a collection program, pay people $15 for an ounce of mercury, the state could in turn sell that probably at a profit to whatever businesses or whatever manufacturing that they want. That's what's missing, is a policy conducive to the collection by the small-scale miners. We've proposed this stuff, like I say, to Senator Allen, but I want to explain one last thing here, and that is the soup pot theory. And this is a Supreme Court decision, and I'm going to use what Ruth Bader Ginsburg had stated in this, and that is about incidental fallback and what is labeled, as everybody's talking about, these pollutant discharge permits and things of that nature. Ms. Ginsburg, if I could borrow your cup here, sir, is her theory was this, and it's a case out of L.A., is if you represent this cup as a river, if I dip a ladle into that and I lift it up, and let's say it's minestrone soup, and I pour that ladle back in there, am I adding any pollutant to that? Well, of course not. That's precisely what a suction dredge does. It moves the material from this portion of a river to this portion. But let's take it a step further, because you're removing 100% of the lead and you're removing 98% of the mercury. Common sense would tell you that that's a good thing. But the opposition to mining it obviously disagrees with that. There's only one person here that's going to get rich off of this Senate Bill 637 scheme, and that's Izzy Martin and Sierra Fund. So we represent tens of thousands of suction dredgers in the state of California.
Let's just keep it on the merits of the bill.
Okay. So we represent tens of thousands of suction dredgers here in the state of California, and we vehemently oppose this bill.
Very good. Next witness.
My name is Chris Georgie. I would like to address some of the technical details. First, one thing that is interesting, in that Auburn Journal paper, which I have included just the printout of, you'll notice that the equipment that is being used by Sierra Fund for Combi is in fact stated, the Pegasus equipment uses suction dredging equipment to help remove mercury from sand and gravel. The new equipment provides a way to safely remove sediment and mercury from the sediment, he says. Furthermore, when it comes to an addition, where dredge spoils are considered, it in fact has been considered a pollutant. This is when dredge spoils are removed from one section, moved to another water body, and deposited, such as in San Francisco Bay. This was in fact a hampering navigation. That was the reason that was considered a pollutant. Same as trees floating down a river were considered a pollutant. It is also, there are a number of studies that have been shown that not only is mercury not methylated actively in the rivers, it is in fact actively demethylated as it is exposed to sunlight. I've included that study in here as well. The UV light is the most effective means of photo demethylation and can reach rates of 6 to 25% per day of the total concentration. Additionally, the microbes which methylate mercury, they do not thrive in aerobic conditions, which means those having oxygen. They only persist once you've gotten to a totally anoxic environment. I've also included a study in here which is for the oxidation of Lake Comanche to specifically remove the problems they had there forming hydrogen sulfide. It's the same bacteria that creates the methyl mercury. Okay. When you have a large flow in the wintertime, not only is it moving all of the material downstream, the armored layer in a high flood will in fact move, and there are boulders that could be the size of this table that will roll downstream without any interruption. The data that was referred to about the levels of mercury increasing, what has in fact happened is we have seen that the levels of mercury that are seen are directly correlated to the water year and how much flow there is, and there's no correlation to the dredging. The 2008, which was had a lower mercury level than we did in 2012. Also, I'd like to direct your attention to the numerous images throughout the binder which show the materials which we collect from these rivers, including lead, mercury, trash, and all manner of materials that are all human introduced. We put them there, we can take them out.
Thank you. Next witness opposed.
Yes, I'm Rob Merrick. I'm not a party to the cases in the down in San Bernardino, but I'm very familiar with them. Mr. Keith Walker is here. He's the only individual minor that is a party to one of the 6 cases. All the others are groups of minors under associations and so forth. He's the only one that is an individual miner that goes out and prospects for gold and gets it and uses it as part of his income. And that was true up until 2008. He started in '63. So I'm going to let him come up to the table in just a minute. But let me go through some of the things that I've garnered from reading the record of that case and things that I think you could change this bill to help out with. First of all, this bill has 2 sections to it, Section 1 and Section 2. And just to give you an idea, the big problem we have in the case down in San Bernardino is that we're dealing with Section 5653 of the Fish and Game Code, and that's your Section 1 of your bill. And then you have a Section 2 that goes to the Water Code for the Water Resources Board. If I had 4 or 5 items on my wish list, I would suggest that you take those 2 sections and make them each an individual bill. It makes it a lot easier when the parties have to get together and decide what to do about where they're going to go next in the litigation process. It will also relieve any problems that you have a bill that has a subject matter name that makes it a legal bill under Article 9 of the state constitution of Part 4. It's Section 9 of Article 4 of the state constitution that says a bill has got to have a subject matter title. You can't have an appropriations bill amending a statute that's already in place. And you can't put a statute in place unless you have a subject matter in its title. My second wish list would be to say this, because it'll solve a lot of time for people briefing the issue in the court case, which is still going on. AB 120 and SB 1018 are 3 of the bills that were used to set up the moratorium that the miners have been suffering from since 2009. It would be nice if, as part of this bill, when you deal with 5653, you essentially, and I know this is a hard word to accept when you're legislature, repeal both of those immediately. The reason being they were in budget appropriations bills. They did not have the subject matter vacuum suction dredging in the title. The title on one of those bills is 36 lines long. It deals with 8 different agencies. It mentions over 100 sections of various codes and so forth. So if you deleted those 2, the moratorium would end tomorrow.
Wish list number 3.
Okay, wish list number 3.
Move forward.
Okay.
We're not going to be here till midnight.
When we're talking about technically what happens with mining and with the dredges, if the court in San Bernardino knew at this moment, which I found out and others have found out at 2 different meetings of people that are in the plaintiffs group, that the state was supporting dredging for cleaning up mercury, like in the...
Yeah, that is included in there as well.
Right, the Bear Valley and the Columbine area. He might have a different view of things because he is under the impression that all suction dredge mining has been prohibited in the entire state. And it's not. The state, through funding $9 million to the Water Board, has put out contracts, and the biggest one is that reservoir, the Columbine Reservoir. Combi Reservoir. And they're the ones that are only getting 85% mercury out when individual dredgers with their dredging machines get out 98%. More importantly, this report, it's not a report, it's a letter. I'd like to give this in evidence to all the members of the committee.
Sergeant.
Is a comment by one of the plaintiffs in the case, but it was before he was a plaintiff, of course, because he's an expert in dredging. He's also an expert in underwater mining. And his name is McCracken. Now, I heard that name McCracken from a friend of mine who's probably the best individual at suction dredge mining in the state of California. In his lifetime, with suction dredge mining in overseas in Africa and Cambodia, after he got out of the Vietnam War, he stayed overseas, and he's been a miner for 30 years. He has been a miner using suction dredging equipment. So what I know is what I've learned from him and what I've seen in this case, and his viewpoint would be that there's very little impact by suction dredging if you're using a 4-inch nozzle. It's like using your vacuum cleaner in a real dusty room. It moves it around, but it doesn't really disturb things. The state gets after this by saying, well, 6 and 8 inches we're going to be a little bit more strenuous with.
In your fourth wish list.
Okay, well let me finish this third one. A centrifuge is a gravitational separation device. In the Combi reservoir, what's being used is, in the last 3 pages of this material I gave you, up near the top of the third page from the end, it says, more than just a suction dredge, the NID dredge, that's the Nevada Irrigation District dredge, will employ a cutter head at the nozzle. A cutter head has like a series of 6 what I would call drills, like if you drill into a piece of wood and you get dust coming out. Well, you put 6 of them in a circle and you have a hose in the middle. That's what they're using. That's not what miners use. Miners use a straight hose like at the end of a vacuum cleaner, and it takes up whatever is solid and big or little that can go through that 4-inch pipe. And they don't crush up anything and make it into small particles. When it comes in, it's the same size as when it comes in, and when they discharge it out the end of the dredge, it's the same size as when it came in. The cutter head that's being used by the contractor with the State Water Board to do that reservoir is actually doing a worse job at clearing mercury than would be done by regular dredgers, because it is chopping up into fine particles all that material that comes up off the bottom of the reservoir. Granted, it's a hot spot and there's a lot of mercury there. And in so doing, it doesn't all go up through the vacuum. The 6 heads, just like when you're drilling and you get sawdust all over the place, each one of those 6 drill bits, so to speak, is dispersing material that doesn't get sucked up in the hose. And that's the material that becomes very minute particles, and they are creating more of a problem than any suction dredge used by miners. My wish list would be, if you were if somebody could say tomorrow what can be done, that project should be shut down immediately, as long as they're still going to use the cutter head at the nozzle. Use a regular nozzle, that's fine, but not a cutter head, because that's where you really get fine particles of mercury, and who knows how much they're spreading out in that entire reservoir, and that water leads to drinking water downstream. So getting rid of the unconstitutionality of AB 120 and 1018, taking care of Combi, and the worst possible situation is to think this is a test project that we should do throughout the state and maybe up in the mountains. I don't think so. It is not a good way to go after mercury.
Just
Okay.
so we understand, this is for everybody here.
Right.
This is not a symposium on mining.
Okay.
I don't want to know all. I understand that this legislation was a reaction to the court case that came in, but I don't want to be briefed on the court case. I don't want to. It's what we do here is we have a proposal. I've got 4 pages in front of me.
Right.
And I have to, and it can be changed, but I need to have the comments focused
Fine.
on this.
Add one comment to your statute on the water board that the reintroduction into the stream by a vacuum sludge dredging machine apparatus in a stream that only puts back into the stream what comes into the vacuum entry point is not a discharge under the NPDES. That would be in accord with federal law, federal cases, and it would resolve the problem for water quality as far as suction dredging is concerned.
Just glancing at this, it appears that this is wonderful information for the permitting board to understand if they were going to grant the permitting. What we're here to do, at least as I understand, is that the decision is not, this is not a prohibition. It's already prohibited. And this is, you need a permit. This is trying to balance the fish and game and the State Water Resources and bring them together on what the permit looks like. All the details of the permit, as interesting as they are, not my job. That's not my job. I'm not determining what the criteria is. I'm just at least the bill in front of me. Now there may be another bill, or maybe two bills.
I'm just saying that if you added that one line, you would get rid of 95% of the, or maybe as high as the 98% of the problems with this bill.
Okay.
The State Water Board can control water quality wherever it wants. It can do that right now. But the point is, going after the miners as one group and then not recognizing federal law that says when you put what back into the river, what you took out of the river, that's not a discharge under NPDES. That's important to recognize as a legislator because you're passing a law, and that is just reflecting what the law is.
Okay.
My
Very
last
good.
point would be on the mercury. My expert, the guy with $1.25 million that he's gotten out of gold in the last 30 years, would tell you, Rob, the biggest thing is all the mercury that we have with all these miners. I could go and survey everybody in this room, and if anybody's got less than 30 pounds of mercury in their garage, I would be surprised. Everybody I've talked to has got at least 40 pounds, if not 150 pounds. So you've got to set up a system whereby it can be deposited with the state, and they get credit for it or they get money for it. But that's the best way to get mercury out of the system right now, is get all the mercury from what they've gotten in the last 30 years plus what they're going to get in the next 10 years out of this system.
Thank you.
That's all I have to
Okay.
say.
Now, we have a mic that's in the middle. If I can have, some of you are standing here, if we could use the mic, as you can, well, you don't know this. This is an unusual thing for a chair to allow over a half hour of presentation on the pro and con. So now for my fellow senators that are here, we see that there's a lot of people here. So if what we would like to, we've got some data, a lot of very important data. If we could just have people's names and where you're from, and I assume we're hearing the people that are opposed. So if you use that microphone right there.
I have a bad leg. I'd like to sit down if it's okay with you.
Okay. Everybody else, please stand.
Oh, I'll keep it short. Okay, last time when I was here to testify, I gave a copy to the Senator Pally, a copy of
Papley.
mercury, everything. And she said it would. Okay, it got to your staff, so I don't have to go through any of the stuff in there.
Thank you.
Okay, I think this water board, we all want clean, good water. But I think the State Water Board has enough on its plate. They have 80 billion gallons of water that is contaminated going into the oil fracking, 60 billion gallons going into the pot growing, which produces pesticides and all kinds of things. So I don't think they need another permit department to permit us. And we're not polluters. What is the wild?
Chuck, give him your name.
Okay, my name's Chuck Dunn.
Thanks, Chuck. And you opposed the bill?
Yeah, no. Yes, I do. I drove 8 hours to get here, and I'm still tired.
And what else do you want me to know? What if you could give me one sentence of what I should know about SB 637 and why you drove to get here?
A lot of it's been stated. But what to do is I gave a little tiny packet. It's got a lot of good information. It's concise. It's referenced. I gave you my phone number. If you have any questions, call me. And if something to think about yourself, how did the brown trout and rainbow trout exist before the Department of Fish and Game for thousands of years? And do we need all these agencies to do these things? And we all agree we want good, clean water. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Next, name, address, and your statement on the bill.
Ron Clewert. I'm with Public Lands for the People. We represent thousands of small-scale miners. And we definitely oppose SB 637. for all the reasons that have been stated by Mr. Poe and Chris Georgie. And just want to make a note that the dredges that were used in the testing that were 98% effective in removing mercury, they've improved them since then. They're now 99% plus effective.
Good news.
There's a family business in California, family-owned business, Keen Engineering, that is perfecting those sluice boxes. So,
Next witness.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Robert Guardiola. I'm an independent miner, have been so for many years now. I'm also the president of the Delta Gold Diggers, a nonprofit agency out of Stockton, California. I also am a member of the GPAA, which represents 50,000 members nationwide and a member of several of the mining districts locally. There's several flawed things here in this bill that we're trying to get across. It's going to limit a lot of my miners' ability to earn an income. It's already put us out of the ball game, and I've seen a lot of my members struggle over the last several years that this ban on dredging has been imposed. One thing about mercury, sure, we all get mercury out of the rivers. It usually comes in the form of this. If we've got gold in our sluice boxes, I think one thing that hasn't been explained on the sluice boxes and the dredge, they all have sluice boxes. In that sluice box, you have a crash box. In that crash box, you have a screen that divides out the smaller stuff from the heavier stuff. Heavier stuff flows over the riffles, and so does the smaller stuff. When mercury is combined with gold, it generally sticks to the gold. And that's one of the reasons that dredging is so effective. And we pull out 90% of it. One other thing that I want you to consider in this bill is that you've got a water filter on your tap at home. It only removes 98 to 99% of the pollutants in the water. Are you going to get a permit to have that water filter on your tap? Okay? Thousands of miners are out of work because of this, and you're putting them more and more in debt. I urge you to not move this bill forward. I oppose it, and so do my miners.
Thank you. Next witness.
My name is John Ratley. I'm from Salida, California. I'm an independent miner, and I agree with Shannon Poe and everything that he discussed with you, and I oppose this bill.
Thank you.
My name is Jolynn Rethus. I'm from Vacaville. I'm a miner. I oppose this bill. I support everything that has been said by Shannon Poe and everyone else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Woldhouse, San Francisco, California. That is where I was born, living currently in Antioch. And I'm the president of the East Bay Prospectors. We're also an authorized GPAA group. And I oppose this SB 637, concurrence with Chris and Shannon.
Thank you.
Hello, Senator. Name's Leroy Lenhart, and I'm a miner, and I depend on getting gold to make a little bit of a living. I notice everybody likes to wear jewelry. Some of this is probably something I sold to the jeweler. You made your jewelry or your earrings, the back of your earrings stuff. And I have about 40 pounds of mercury sitting in a jar. So in 2000, I think it was 2000 or 2001, EPA had a thing out where all the dredgers would take the gold, mercury gold, and they would buy it from them. And all of a sudden it just stopped. So somewhere down there it was there because and they got a lot of mercury out of that and was brought in, lots of it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Greger. I'm from Atwater, California. In an earlier part of my life, I spent 5 years working for the Environmental Protection Agency, Hazardous Waste Branch, Office of Water Quality, Division of Enforcement. As a result of the National Resources Defense Council suit against the EPA for mismanaging 129 pollutants, including heavy metals, mercury, zinc, lead. I managed 3 projects, specifically dealing with the 129s. One, the collection of some of the 700,000 sites that monitor pollutants, and the 200 million data points that exist, included fish kills, mercury-based fish kills. I also managed dilution studies, which looked at such things as USGS gauging stations, measured the difference in flow coming downriver. And I can tell you that if any of the work we did on those projects had the same kind of science used here, NRDC would have had the EPA back in court. I vehemently oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dolores Erb from Salida, California, and I oppose this bill as stated by Mr. Shannon Poe.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michael Dahl. I'm from Pleasant Hill. I'm a California small-scale miner, and I oppose this bill. I've got 5 weeks of vacation at work this year. 4 weeks of it will be spent in Idaho dredging. I'll be taking all my finances up there to purchase my fuel, my supplies, my equipment, and that could be spent in California. So I oppose this bill on the basis that stated by Shannon Poe.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Randy Harrelson from Granite Bay, California. I just want to say on behalf of the miners, we don't want to hurt the environment. And I had patent pending numbers for an gold dredge improvement. On the same month that I was granted these numbers, they banned gold dredging at the same time. So not only do I don't build dredges anymore, and I don't hire people to build dredges either. And I don't want to hurt the environment, and I want dredging legal again. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gary Chance. I'm from San Jose, California. I'm the Claims Committee Chair for East Bay Prospectors. I also own gold claims up in the mountains outside of Groveland. I pay taxes on those claims. I should be able to exercise my federal mining rights to locate and find gold. I believe that the evidence and documentation that Shannon Poe has presented here today is more conclusive, and the studies are more in depth than what's been done in a short period of time by some of these scholars. I'm totally opposed to this bill. I think there's better alternatives. I think that in every county has collection sites for recycling. I think the state should look at those sites as a collection site for mercury that we want to get rid of and not hang on to. And I think you guys have better ways and means of controlling that than individuals do scattered throughout the state. That's all I have to say, and I'm opposed.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Hi, my name's Chris Miller. I'm a former educator for 30 years in San Francisco, science teacher, and now retired casual miner, recreational miner, whatever term I'm politically allowed to use. I'm still in sort of shock that we've got a situation with a lot of facts pointed out here saying, in the Lake Combi example, we have corporate dredging. And yes, it's working. It's got 84%. Meanwhile, you have this entire group of people who are trying to make up for the bad science that happened 150 years ago, and we didn't know the bad effects of mercury. Yes, the miners put it there. Today's miners want to help you get rid of it. And you're trying to stop them? Doesn't make sense to me.
I'm just trying to conduct this hearing. I'm not
I
doing
understand.
I got a lot of bills I got to get through.
I realize that. So it just shocks me that you're trying to stop them while you're still supporting, or someone is still supporting, the corporate dredgers. Again,
Thank you.
where is the little individual in all of this? Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Brandon Reinhardt. I'm an independent miner here in California. I'm currently defending myself against the state in the Supreme Court. People versus Reinhardt, it's in your binder there. For that reason, I oppose this bill based off of Shannon Poe's statement.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dan Custer. I'm a miner from San Diego, and I strongly oppose this bill and the science and facts behind it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Fred Goodwin. I started prospecting in 1947, which is longer ago than some of you are old. We've been prospecting, not creating any problems. My grandparents prospect, and they made enough money during the Depression to be able to buy a home. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Brian Jorgensen from Houston, California. I'm an independent miner. I just want to take a minute and thank the committee. I know this is highly unusual for you guys, but you have to understand we're just regular people. We don't have money behind us. We don't have lobbyists. We're just out there trying to make a living. I'm not sure what was wrong with the permitting process in 1994. I'm not sure why we aren't allowed to do what we do. So for that reason, I vehemently oppose this bill for the reasons Shannon stated.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Patricia Nelson. I'm an environmental permitting and regulatory specialist. And for the reasons that I put on record 2 weeks ago with this committee, I oppose this bill. This bill singles out the independent miners whose impact would be considered de minimis under CEQA, and there seems to be an effort here to regulate something that is an activity that is in fact cleaning up our surface waters. Thank you.
My name is Lauren Reinhart, and based on what Shannon Poe stated earlier, I am in opposition of this bill. Thank you.
Excuse me. Hello, my name is John Reinhart. I'm Brandon's father. I oppose this bill based on all the evidence that's been presented to you too. Thank you.
Gloria Grederman, Mother Lode Gold Hounds, Auburn. I oppose this bill.
Thank you.
Brett Ketchum, Loma Rica, California. I have 37 years experience dredging. I've never killed the fish. And I oppose this bill because if I don't, my grandchildren will never get to enjoy nature. Thank you.
Alton Smithart, and I'm a small-scale miner, and I oppose this bill. And as a footnote, I have personally removed over 600 pounds of mercury from our streams and rivers in California. Thank you.
My name is Jared Neisdal. I'm here to represent myself as a small-scale miner, and I work for a company building sluice boxes. I stand behind the American Mining Rights Association with everything that they say, and I would appreciate it if you guys would keep flipping through that binder and gain a little more information before just going off of what was said by our opposition. I fully oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Elmer Rosenblatt. I'm from Petaluma, California. I'm a small-time miner, and I don't have 20 pounds of mercury. I might have 3 pounds. But I still need a place to get rid of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm opposed to this bill.
Hello, my name is Sean Raymond. I live in Fair Oaks, but we have property and mining claims up in the Siskiyou County area. I'm opposed to this bill, and I'm concerned directly to Mr. Wanowski's statements as far as he's here, he has a bill, he has to work on it, and the concern about the bill is that you're allowing the ability to make these decisions out of the Fish and Game in the Department of Water. They have no restrictions as far as if the permitting process as being able to raise fees or to set fees that would actually make getting permits oftentimes out of the reach of a lot of these individuals. I've done research with trying to be able to do this, and to get a water permit in some of these counties right now, just to check and see if I could pull water out of my river that flows through my property would run $1,000. And there's no reason that they couldn't increase that or make changes to it. And it's on a district by district level, these fees are put out there. So even if you do pass this and have all of this science and all this good information about the permitting process, they also could still fee and things out of it. So I'm adamantly opposed to this bill at this time.
Thank you. Next witness.
It is very hot in this room, so I'll keep it short. My name is Richard Simons. I reside in Stockton, California. I'm an engineering technician by trade, but I'm also a small-scale gold miner, and I oppose this bill.
Next.
My name is Marcus Munier. I'm from North Highlands, California. I agree with what much of Shannon has said. I think there's a lot of environmental hysteria concerning miners and mercury. And about the collection sites for mercury, we have mercury about us in the fluorescent bulbs that are in our ceiling here. It's used as a way to energize it to make the phosphorus glow in the lights. And we're supposed to have recycling centers for those, but I never have encountered them. But if we do have that for the light bulbs, could we have it for mercury from the miners?
Thank you. Okay.
My name's Steve Tyler. I've been mining gold for over 30 years, filing taxes and employing 2 part-time miners for 6 months a year for that time. As Judge Ochoa stated in his Southern California decision, this is a scheme, and it takes away private property mining rights. That's what's about, the bottom line of money. Just another obstruction to our acquisition to the minerals on our own lands, whether they be private or on Forest Service lands. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Steve Durham. I'm from American Canyon, California. I'm a small-time prospector, and I oppose this bill. I feel that it's just another stalling tactic to keep us out of the water. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Daryl Rose. I'm from Stockton, California. I'm part of the Delta Gold Diggers. I oppose this. Definitely. I definitely agree with what Mr. Poe said. He said everything basically that I was thinking. I also wanted to thank you guys for your patience. I know that it's taking a long time. Thank you very much. And I would definitely like it if you said no on my behalf.
Thank you. They're outside.
My name is Rich Georgie. I live in Forest Hill. I have a degree in fisheries biology, and I'm opposed to this legislation going through. Thank you.
My name is Keith Walker. I'm one of the 3 cases in San Bernardino, represent myself. And one of the about 17 lawsuits that have been filed against the Fish and Game over this. And what we're opening up here is a whole new round of lawsuits. And I got about 50 pounds of mercury at home. You know, I don't know where to get rid of it. But the problem I have is with all the misrepresentations and all this stuff you got to read through, is that they're reclaiming gold, the mercury, and we're discharging it. When they're running a suction dredge too, and what they have is a cutter head on the front of it that grinds it and splatters it, and the mercury that's on the outside, those cutter heads get splattered out. So that's why they're recovering, I think it was like 87%, and we're recovering 98%, but yet we're discharging it. So the whole thing is just one misrepresentation after another. Trying to sort through this stuff is a nightmare. I'll see you later.
Thank you. Next. It's my nightmare.
Hi, my name's Brian Sproul. I'm a small-time miner. I used to go mining all the time. Now that since they've outlawed dredging, I don't go anymore. I don't spend money in gas. I don't spend money in food. I don't spend money going to camping at all. Now when I go mining, I maybe once a year, if that. Thank you, and I oppose this bill.
Alex Crossman from Colfax, California, small miner and mechanical engineer. I oppose the bill for the reasons stated here today. Thank you.
Thank you. You're not a small miner. You're just you have maybe small finds. Next.
Patricia Mobley. I'm 63 years old, Copperopolis, California. I'm a prospector, rockhounder, and a dredger. I'd like to get back in the water. I oppose this bill.
Thank you.
Dennis Mobley, Copperopolis, California. Oppose this bill. Thank you.
My name's William Lieberman. I'm from Santa Rosa, California. I oppose this bill.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is James Hutchings. I'm from Forest Hill, California. I'm a small miner. I own a 160-acre placer claim. I've been mining for 25 years in a small mountain stream, and I'm glad to report that I have no mercury from that stream because it doesn't exist there. This bill could put tremendous prohibitions and permit processes in front of me when there's no need for it on my stream and my river. And I would ask you to contact the Department of Health Services. I did. This is not a public safety issue. 60 years of dredging, 13,000 dredge permits issued in the 70s and 80s, our last gold rush, and no downstream effects from mercury intoxication, mercury defects of embryos, nothing. There is no impact from this level of mining. Thank you, folks. I oppose this bill.
Thank you.
My name is Rick Selfa, Stockton, California. I'm an independent miner, and for the reasons stated, Shannon Poe and American Miners' Rights Association, I oppose this bill.
Thank you.
My name is Jerry Clements, and I am a small-scale miner. And for everything we've been talking about, I oppose this bill, and I urge you to oppose it also.
Thank you.
Dale Meyer. I'm the communications officer and website
admin for East Bay Prospectors out of Concord, California. One point is when this test at Combi began or whatever, millions of dollars of our taxpayer money purchased a Canadian dredge. Why didn't we buy it in California? Why didn't we buy it from Keene? Keene makes better dredges, and we send our taxpayer dollars to Canada. As a taxpayer, that upsets me. Number two, I look at District 26, and I look on all my maps and all my data. I do not see a single federal mining claim in District 26, and I wonder why Senator Allen has brought this bill up, as it doesn't appear to have anything to do with his district. Thank you. I oppose this bill strongly.
Thank you. Let's just a friendly reminder, let's focus on the legislation.
My name is Brian Ramos. I'm from San Jose, California. My family has property up in Pine Grove, California. I'm a computer scientist, and I'm a small-scale miner. I'm also the secretary of East Bay Prospectors. I oppose this bill with the information by Shannon Poe. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Gloria Marie, and I strongly oppose this bill, this poorly written bill, and I encourage you all to do the same. I'm a small-scale miner, and this is bad for California.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ron Hamilton. I'm a member of East Bay Prospectors in Concord, California, and I strongly oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Josh Cleaver. I'm a small-scale miner out of Southern California, and I really oppose this. It doesn't seem right. This is the Golden State. This did build, there's a guy over there on the other building, and it has the mineral wealth. You guys know the statue. I oppose this bill. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Doug Juror, Petaluma, California, and I strongly oppose this bill. I'm an independent miner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Cindy Burchard. I'm a member of the Motherlode Goldhounds. I've been mining since '83 when I moved up here. I strongly oppose this bill because we take a lot of junk out of the rivers, and that includes fishing hooks too, along with other metals and so forth. And I strongly oppose this bill.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ed Ebbett. I've been mining for over 40 years, and I really strongly oppose this bill.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brandon Johnson, member of GPAA River City Prospectors, and also with my little Goldhounds. And to keep it short and sweet, I oppose.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jerry Butler, and I own Black Sheep Mining. We're a retail shop here in Sacramento. I oppose this bill. My family's been mining in California for about 167 years. So yes, we did come out with the Donner Party. I oppose this bill. Also, I've sold 4 suction dredges in the last 3 months. 2 of them have been to Kuruk Indian tribe members that have stated that they are still dredging their property.
Thank you.
I'm Ray Dodds. Was a small-scale miner. Now I'm just a prospector. I oppose this bill.
Ron Earl from Ione, California, and I oppose this bill based on Shannon's remarks.
Thank you.
My name is Richard Hussey, and I'm from Elk Grove, California. I've been a prospector for 30 years. I'm with the Motherlode Goldhounds, and I oppose this bill.
Goldhounds.
Rick Eddy, Director for Western Mining Alliance. We oppose the language of the bill. We oppose the bill. We encourage Senator Allen to table the vote today so to give him a chance to rewrite the bill for us so we can all benefit. Thank you.
John Siptrot, small-scale miner, American Mining Rights Association's outing coordinator. I represent many small-scale miners. I support them, and I do not support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Robert Cutting. I live in Benicia, California, and been a miner for the last few years. Basically, I got into it because I was I retired, and I thought, well, I can make some money dredging, that type of thing. Well, I found out that's not the case. Because there's no dredging. And that's something that all these guys are complaining about. That's where you can make money in this particular type of thing. Myself, I retired. I've worked in water and water pollution control all of my life. I hold a community college teaching credential in water and related subjects, and I can tell you the information in this particular bill is not very good. And basically, the subject of methylation and everything else needs to be totally recovered in this bill. And it just is different than what it says.
Thank you. Next. Can you give that to the sergeant?
Did you know this about California gold miners? Gold miners recover more than just gold. Why? Because we care about the environment and we want to see our waterways clean again. The legacy we leave our children and grandchildren will be one of conservation and fun. Join us.
Thank you. Thank you. Next.
Maybe I am the last but not least. Tom Gwynn from Rockland, California, partner in a couple of gold claims up in Sierra. Yes, I wish you would reconsider this bill, maybe reword it. But I want to thank you all for hearing us. And it's my first experience with any type of legislative process. And I have to tell you, I'm impressed that you will listen to us. Thanks.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else?
Yes. I'm Steve Hand, Woodland, California, small miner. I've got thousands of dollars invested in equipment that I haven't been able to use for the last several years because of all this nonsense, and poor science has put a moratorium on dredging. So I strongly oppose this bill.
Okay. Anybody else in the public that is opposed to SB 637 likes to address the committee at this time? Seeing none, we will now bring the matter back to the committee for questions of the author. Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And really no questions. I just wanted to say thank you for the opposition for I see the fishing lure I lost 40 years ago in the McCollum River. So thank you for having that here. I just wanted to make a comment. I really felt the passion on those who are speaking, and I hate to say opposition because I think we're all one family here in California, but I hope that, and I will support the bill today because I do think, and at the end of the day, we'll watch carefully that the Water Board will act responsibly, because the history of California is the history of mining, and I don't want to see anything really take away from that or restrict the benefit and the use of that and the ability for people to be able to mine. So I hope that we can do it in a way that is not restrictive, and I think we can. And so I'll be supporting the bill, and I will make the motion if the time comes.
Senator Pavley.
Just would like Senator Allen in his close to maybe address a few of those issues, and some of it is well, it's a little complex, and you maybe as an attorney can explain this, but there's a lawsuit going on. You can do this in your close, and how this affects or doesn't affect, or is it germane, or how does this fit into the discussion? And all this, the opposition is mostly on the State Water Board because they don't know how aggressive their regulations could be, and it's a second stop along the way, and it might be. In the meantime, there's been, it sounds like, a moratorium in getting in there through the lawsuit because people can't, they keep saying they want to get back in the water, so I assume there's something. Maybe you can just give me a little broader historical context. So right now, there's no safe place to take the mercury. Is that even relevant to the discussion of how the State Water Board will look at all this or not? It's mostly about making sure downstream runoff and any mercury contamination is not in the water supply or eventually our fish or our oceans or something. But the other, I was struck by the sincerity of the opposition. Obviously, everyone was. on changing lifestyles and things like that. But is tribal lands, how do they get affected or not? Because it's a state water board, I assume they're not. No, or they comment on the corporate people having different standards than independent individual miners. So those are just some of the curiosities that I found in their testimony. And whenever you do your close.
Right. I guess one of the pieces of information that was raised is that the suction actually is a benefit for the removal of mercury, and we've, without getting into the lake and this, but there, and then if you could address that, obviously, well, I'll let you answer.
But maybe not a benefit to fish eggs or something like that. See, I'm missing sort of the bigger story. And I remember when past legislators had carried the bill putting a moratorium or a ban on suction dredging in some of those North Coast rivers, and I think it was about the fish.
I'd be happy to help with one of those questions because you bring up a lot of great issues. When they say that a certain amount of mercury is collected by the suction dredge, you have to remember that there's many different forms of mercury. And so they are collecting liquid elemental mercury or mercury gold amalgam. That's a good thing. The mercury that goes out the back of the dredge into the river is in a form that is much more bioavailable. Okay, so that's the mercury that's very likely to be methylated. It's been disturbed, it's particulate bound, it's deoxygenated. We have scanning electron micrograph pictures of this mercury, what it looks like, and that's the mercury that can be easily used by sulfur-reducing and iron-reducing bacteria, and then that's how it gets into the terrestrial and aquatic food chains. So even though they're talking about a 2% that's not being got, that 2% is extremely important when you look at biomagnification and bioaccumulation of mercury. And on that note, with respect to the COMBI project, because I actually have been a scientist for that project for a long time, with the Nevada Irrigation District, the COMBI sediment and mercury removal project is not releasing any water back to the reservoir. It is a closed system test. The district has not purchased a dredge. They purchased a centrifuge to create a sediment treatment facility. They also have an NPDES permit. So until their NPDES permit and their 401 certification is fully completed as a result of the pilot testing, they will not be releasing a single thing back to the reservoir. So I thought I should clarify those points for you.
Yeah.
But you don't dispute the assertion that we've heard from opponents of the bill that they're actually removing 98% of the mercury in the form that it is, because it gets to your earlier testimony that when we have a turbulent rainstorm or we have our extreme weather that may come up, there would be less mercury in the river for whatever would happen with Mother Nature.
Yeah, I don't dispute that liquid elemental mercury is being captured by these physical processes. However, when miners indicate that they have many pounds of mercury, that's a Class 1 hazardous waste material, and you need a Class 1 hazardous waste permit to handle it. You can't have more than 10 pounds. Every county has a waste management disposal facility where that can be turned over. At least that's true for Nevada County, and it's free and anonymous to turn it over. Firefighters really are in danger if they go into a building with liquid elemental mercury in a glass jar sitting in it. It will explode, and volatilized mercury will kill you instantly. So we are looking at a public health concern when we hear reports of so many pounds of mercury out in the public in people's garages or basements or wherever.
So the tip for any legislator that would want to propose legislation to expedite the collection of this mercury, there'd be an amnesty element to that also, so that people would come in.
This has been done. In fact, it was done by Nevada County, and exactly, you could turn it over, no questions asked. It stopped because it was so successful. Liquid elemental mercury has to be disposed of as a Class 1 hazardous waste at Kettleman City. Very expensive process, and I believe the counties were overwhelmed with the response that they had. That doesn't mean it's not a great idea that it needs to be started again.
Okay, seeing no other questions, before we get to the consideration, Senator Allen.
I guess you
get the last word.
Well, first of all, this mercury collection issue that's come up it seems an acute one, and the idea that they stopped it because it's so successful is very dissatisfying. to say the least. And I think you've heard today from a lot of folks who speak to the importance of the government getting a handle on this issue. The gentleman here, Chris, shared with me a memo. I think it's in your binder from the EPA that talked about a major take-back program that they had in 2000, and it doesn't seem as though they've done that since.
That's the program she's referring to, I believe.
Okay, all right. I do. It does appear that at least some, if not, some of the counties have take-back programs. Though this is something I literally in the middle of the testimony, I turned to my staffer here and said I'd like to go talk to the EPA. I'd like to go talk to some of these counties as well to see a little bit more about what we can do to help encourage more of the take-back because of all the issues that have been raised both by the folks who've come in to testify and also the professor here. Look, I think ultimately this is about empowering the water board to examine and regulate and permit this activity. As you said, Senator, it's not the job of the Environmental Quality Committee to delve in deeply into every single chemical and toxin and scientific aspect of the specifics of suction dredge mining and its impacts. This is why we have experts in the agencies who oversee this sort of thing. And if it is true that ultimately there is a net environmental gain associated with this activity, the board will permit it. And in fact, we're going to add in language based on our conversations with the opponents that will make it explicit that the board can actually say that a permit would not even be necessary in certain cases if they felt, if it's de minimis, right? If they felt as though, if they felt that they would be appropriate. So what has happened here, and you asked about the legal story. I mean, the Superior Court, we do have a moratorium. It's in place, but it was challenged in court. And ultimately, the court said that federal mining law preempted the department's regulations of suction dredge mining on federal land because the department couldn't legally issue permits. This was the Department of Fish and Wildlife.
So stop there. That would mean that if the federal law preempts, that would void the moratorium that was placed on state law or using the federal EPA?
Yes.
Senator Allen, the question's to Senator Allen.
Yes, that's right. And what the Department of Fish and Wildlife has said is that they don't have, that this is the water board's responsibility. And the court itself has said that they want to see clarification in suction dredge mining laws.
This is why
we're here.
Which is, courts do that all the time, is that they ask the legislature for clarification. There's been a dispute, there's been a different interpretation, and can the legislature weigh in?
Right.
Proceed.
So this seeks to empower the water board to regulate this activity, which is a natural follow-on of the court's kind of concern about the lack of clarity. The other thing I'll say is I heard and I understand, I'm very sympathetic to the fees issue that was raised by one of the folks who commented. I will say that the board is tasked with the responsibility is for fees for permitting to only cover the costs of the program. The rules are very strict about this. Otherwise, we'd be having taxpayers subsidize this activity. So there are rules that limit the board's ability to charge too much in fees, and those rules are in place. They're rules that I think most people here on the committee are familiar with. It's something I'm sympathetic to, but it's not as though there's some unlimited power of these agencies to just smack on whatever fee they want to fund the permitting process. So this simply seeks to address the concerns raised by the court by empowering the water board to oversee what is ultimately a water quality issue. I think that the sort of evidence that has been brought before us today deserves to be heard before the panel of experts who examine water quality, who can really sit there, delve into this, look at the issues, and craft a permitting procedure that will truly take into account the environmental weighing test that we're looking at today. We're hearing that, yes, there's mercury being extracted as part of the process. We're also hearing that there's other mercury that's being agitated and redistributed into the river as part of the process. And we've also heard about small streams or rivers that don't have any mercury at all, which presumably the water board would very much take into account and permit because there would be there wouldn't be the same sort of environmental concerns in those rivers than there are in the ones where there is a high presence of mercury in the ground. So this is, but ultimately this is about handing over to the water quality experts a process and a mechanism for examining this sort of debate, weighing those issues, and then permitting or not, or even saying, look, you don't even need a permit here for those rivers because the environmental impacts are de minimis. That's what this bill seeks to do.
Okay. That's it.
So, but I am committed to continuing, whether it's me personally or my staff. I hope that folks understand that staff, and I think everyone on the panel very much understands that staff are an integral part of the development of the bills. I appreciate the concerns that have been raised. I know that the panel does as well. I want this to be about environmental protection. I don't think this is a ban. This is ultimately up to an agency like the Water Board to really determine and look at the environmental balances in play here. And that's why I respectfully ask for an aye vote, but I am committed to continuing a dialogue with the opponents on this.
I don't know if many of the people who testified against, they talked about the challenges that the language has, and it seems as though part of the testimony was that there's all these different rivers and all these different levels that when the bill contains language that there's a prohibition on any dredging if the board would find that some discharges may cause a violation of Port or Cologne or federal law, there may be some attention to specificity on that because not all violations are the same violations. So I don't know what other non-gold, non-mercury elements that may be in here that may raise the concern of the State Water Board that you want it to be consistent, but it seems like it's a exact prohibition if you find any of the discharge, and there just may be something there with the language that you can work on.
I'd love to clarify. The Port of Cologne Water Quality Act has sediment as a contaminant of concern, in addition to mercury. A lot of the testimony that you've been talking or hearing from today has been about mercury, and yes, the dredges do release mercury that above the Clean Water Act level that is acceptable, in fact, in two different forms, both total and methyl mercury. However, sediment is another regulatory criteria that is used and would be in streams where there is no mercury, as is turbidity as a measurement of impact. So for the Combi Reservoir project, the turbidity of the water that would be released back to the reservoir cannot exceed 5 NTUs. We have not yet been able to reach that low level. Even after centrifuging that sediment and adding polymers to it and having 2 series of closed settling tanks to try and treat this slurry that's created as a result of the dredging that's happening out in the reservoir, we still have not been able to reach that level on just the turbidity or sediment level. So this is a water quality issue for all streams and rivers, not just streams and rivers that are impacted with mercury.
May I speak to that?
Physician, go ahead, please.
The one issue with that particular statement is that the sediments that are removed from within a river are considered indigenous sediments. You can't have a pollutant that you take out of something and drop back into it. When you take something from a land-based area and add that then becomes the sediment, which is a pollutant.
This is what the Water Board ought to kind of examine. I mean, just that sort of argument, this sort of argument, the arguments made about all the trash that's pulled out. This is all good stuff, right? I think we can all agree, and this is the kind of thing that the Water Board would look at and weigh. I mean, this is their job. This is their job ultimately. They're looking at water quality. They're looking at all the impacts, and I think it would be. I think the folks have a good case to be made about some of the positive environmental impacts associated with the mining, and this is what the board would take into account. It's what we task them with.
Okay, we have. I believe there was a motion by Senator Hill some time ago. There was a motion so that the members of the assembled here today knows that this is the motion. If approved, is to do pass to the Appropriations Committee. So this will be the third committee that it'll go to for evaluation of the economic impact that this bill would have. So, Assistant, please call the roll.
Item 23, SB 637 by Senator Allen. The motion is due pass as amended and refer to Committee on Appropriations. Senators Wykowski?
Aye.
Wykowski, aye. Gaines? Bates? Hill?
Aye.
Hill, aye. Jackson?
Aye.
Jackson, aye. Leno?
Aye.
Leno, aye. Pavley? Pavley, aye.
Okay. The measure has 5 votes. We'll keep the roll open for the others. Thank you very much. We will pause.
Thank you. And please give me a call or email.
We'll pause for a couple of minutes to let people
in the binder there. I believe I
leave,
did.
and then go to Mr. Allen's next bill, since it's